You're listening to The Starting Zone, a podcast about World of Warcraft and the people who play it. And now, here are your hosts.
Well, hello and welcome to The Starting Zone, the podcast about World of Warcraft and the people who play it. Today is January 12th, 2025, and my name is Spencer Downey. Thank you so much for listening and subscribing to the podcast. I'm joined today, as always, by my co-host, Jason Lucas. Jason, how are you doing on this fine Sunday?
Spencer, hello. I'm doing well. Yes, here we are back again for another Sunday midday record. And, we spent the last couple weeks going, well, once Blizz is back in the office, we'll have some more live game stuff to talk about. And, well, it didn't really work out that way, did it? They are back in the office and there is stuff happening. And, I mean, we definitely have stuff to talk about this week. But in terms of live game stuff, we're very much just on the status quo here, which is fine in a way. We're totally like ramped down and just full steam ahead on, moving into season 2. So that makes sense. I got to say, I've been playing a lot less. I've been doing, guild stuff, but I've really like kind of fallen off I'm going to do my World Quest lap, after reset, and I'm going to do it after Friday night reset, and I'm going to grab the alts and do the delves and do all the weekly stuff or whatever. I just haven't had like a big pull to do that, and part of it is just because I sort of got to the end of the process with that stuff, where it got close enough to the literal hard stop end of it that there's no reason to continue doing it, I guess. So I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at. It's a weird kind of holding pattern, waiting for season 2 at this point and for patch. But
yeah,
it's actually pretty welcome for me. I want to ramp down. I could use another month and a half here or whatever to just play a little bit less WoW and just kind of decompress. I mean, I was going really hard from I guess pre-expansion event, right? And leveling up all of those tunes and doing all that stuff. And just then the amount of time since early access started, it was just a lot, like really right up until, the big holiday break. So, and now with, you have to take a little bit of a break for stuff like that. Then you have some perspective and it's like, do I really want or need to do this? Or is this just part of a routine that I'm sticking to? So
yeah,
that's kind of where I'm at with WoW right now. Not that I'm not playing at all, but just like, if it's not guild stuff time, then I'm probably doing something else.
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time in World of Warcraft this past week, even though we had a week off from ratings. So there was no pressure on that. And I also was just vault-wise focusing on finishing off my sockets, which I did. And so now I have an extra socket item sort of sitting in my bank because I just basically went, I'll knock out enough world events to get myself a socket. So I have that kicking around. As far as items and gear goes, we're kicking back off into raiding tonight. And so I'll be in for, I think, 6 or 7 bosses of the raid tonight. And that'll be fun. And I'm looking forward to that. Although I know a lot of the meta has changed since the ring came in. So I actually need to catch up a little bit on the like top tier mythic raider, info and parses and whatnot to see what people are doing. So that I'm a little better prepared for that. I haven't done that yet. So that's on my list of things. And feeling like I'm really accomplishing what I want to accomplish out of my raid time. But as far as what I was doing in game outside of all of that raiding and whatnot, obviously this past week was Darkmoon Fair, and we also had the anniversary event end. So I basically had my characters that had been farming experience at the answer a question historian person at the anniversary event now aren't gaining that experience anymore. But if a bunch of them hit 70, if not, they were a little bit into 70, which meant that I was then like, okay, well, what professions have I not sort of finished off yet since it's Darkmoon Fair? And so blacksmithing was the one that I decided I was going to dedicate to out of this, which means my Death Knight, who's a blacksmith, got the treatment yesterday of basically hopping in. He was level 70, went to the skip the quest chain, go to Dornegal, pick up the quests I needed to pick up, learn blacksmithing, learn mining, go around and collect all the treasures that are there, start actually doing some blacksmithing and level up 2 levels just from crafting things at the blacksmithing vendor. and then head over to mining and start doing mining and level up another level just from doing mining, and work my way through that. Got myself up to 70 skills into blacksmithing. Went to Darkmoon Fair, did Darkmoon Fair at that point, so I then got the knowledge and the skill ups from Darkmoon Fair after I had done the bulk of the work crafting wise. And so yeah, you got him all situated basically. And it's very weird to get such an influx of knowledge so early, but still know that I'm like 400 knowledge points behind on some of these things when the whole thing's going, to try and catch that up. So the big thing for me was I wanted someone who could craft profession tools and profession equipment. So that was my focus for this blacksmith. And so this blacksmith now is basically like, I've maxed out those nodes. I'll do some like maintenance mode to just continue to get some more knowledge to make things cheaper and have a better chance of being an improved item. But outside of that blacksmith goes into maintenance mode for just logging in every week, spending 45 minutes to an hour and a half finding the 5 treasures that I need to get my knowledge points. I'm still pointing that out. It is brutal, that grind, that it still exists. And then basically just doing the work orders on a regular basis to get some more knowledge out of that and have things going. But it's nice to have a blacksmith up. The only profession I don't have now is engineer. So that's my next goal, is probably my paladin, who was a jewel crafter. Miner jewel crafter will probably be a miner engineer is what I'll probably end up doing for that. And I'll do that at some point. I'll figure out when I want to do it, but then I'll have all of the professions and I'll be able to do all the profession equipment and get all my guys all geared out, because you can't put quality control on public orders. If I could, then I wouldn't do what I'm doing right now. I would spend my time doing something else inside World of Warcraft. But because I want to have that gear and I want to have the items the way they are, it just feels like it's the most efficient use of my time, unless I can find someone in my guild who can currently do it. And there's just not that many people who went down the profession track. A lot of people chose to put their points somewhere else. They're starting to get to that point where if they had kept up with it, they would be able to do this. But a lot of people didn't. A lot of people did not put the effort into really staying on top of their professions after they crafted the few pieces they wanted to craft, or they went down the specific path they wanted to go down. So yeah, it's one of those cases where like, this is just gonna be really easy. It's gonna set me up for the whole expansion. I'm gonna have these characters that'll be able to stay on top of this if I need to stay on top of it. And I do a lot of orders for my guild, as it turns out, because a lot of other people are like, hey, I want, this profession equipment, or I want this staff, or I want this whatever. And it's like, all right, I'll log into this one other character that can do all that crafting. So that's worked out well. I've kind of helped out in that front, but yeah, it is a little bit interesting, the profession grind, and I think getting it all out of the way before we see season 2 would be really nice. So I'm getting there. The extra,
that's good.
Yeah,
especially being able to do it for guildies, like that's the big thing. I mean, like obviously, I've been in a huge guild now for a year and a half, so it's like somebody somewhere has the recipe or the quality or whatever.
Yeah.
And also, they made stuff a bit different in War Within coming from Dragonflight, because like you really need those max quality profession tools if you want to guarantee top level crafts on stuff, especially on mats, which is kind of the stupidest thing coming from Dragonflight, because in Dragonflight it was just like you would proc your what was it called back then? It's I can't remember, but they changed it to concentration. It was like inspiration or something, and it was like, oh, you just like get a quality bonus randomly, so you didn't care that much. But now it's like, dude, you got to have those maxed out tools if you want to have top level stuff. It's the only way to get the mats, and without the mats, then the skill ceiling's way too high. So it's a lot more deliberate this time around.
Yeah, there's a few things with it. I will say there are some professions where I can just now craft top tier stuff with tier 2 or tier 3 materials, like depending on the mix of what the combination is. I don't need any concentration at all to make a top tier item. And I think all professions should probably strive to achieve that. Whereas there's definitely ones where like consistently, regardless of having maxed out tools and, maxed out ingredients, you still have to use concentration to actually make the top tier. And I think that's unfortunate. It feels like they didn't hit the mark on those crafts, where it's like, oh, even with everything else maxed out and using like a little skill up scroll or whatever it is inside of the icon, I still can't actually hit the top tier. I still need to use concentration. Is like, okay, well, that's an interesting choice when this parallel profession, I can actually hit that mark and actually craft that thing without using concentration. So I find that interesting where it's just, it feels a little bit all over the place. And it could be that's just such a broad and expansive system that they just missed here and there. Like that's just possible. But in general, I really enjoy the crafting system right now. I think it's very well done. I just think there's a few tweaks they have to make. And one of the biggest ones to me is with crafting orders of letting you actually set a quality on public orders. So I think it's just like, that is a massive needs to be fixed, in my opinion. There shouldn't be an RNG element to when you're getting something crafted.
Right. Yeah. Well, I guess we'll see. It's been this way for a while. I mean, the nice thing with coming into season 2 is we will get more new sources of like one-time knowledge. So that'll be really cool to get, not really a catch up, so to speak, but just to accelerate stuff. And if this goes the way it went in Dragonflight, if you've been keeping up with it, like mid-season 2, early season 2, you might just be done, with knowledge entirely. So it's
I'm looking forward to it.
It's not this sort of thing that persists all expansion where you always have to maintain it up to a seasonal level or something. If they keep it the same way, which it looks like going into season 1 into 2 that they are keeping it that way. It's sort of this like closed system of you need this many points to earn everything. And once you have this many points, then you have mastered all of these things. Like right now, for the first 2 patches, the Master's Hammer from Dragonflight was broken and it did stuff it wasn't supposed to do. The Master's Hammer lets you repair a piece of your gear that you have max knowledge of. The Dragonflight one worked out of the gate for 11.0 and 11.0.5 on all my gear. So I was repairing my gear for free for the first 2 patches. They finally fixed it. And now I'm starting to hit those thresholds with certain pieces of gear, like Bracer's belt were kind of go-tos because it's like people want those for embellishments. And I went boots because that's another offset piece that people might want for something like that. Even the old hammer doesn't work, so I got to make a new hammer, which is going to be really expensive. But I figure I'll wait until I have more pieces rounded out there.
Right,
but that was fun to take advantage of for the first couple patches. I knew they were going to fix it, but I'm like, let's just hang on there a little bit longer. Just let me get to the point where I can just swap right over to the new one. Because man, repair bills in this expansion are no joke. I haven't been used to paying them, but now I have to. So
and I was go ahead.
I was just going to say like that, I was going to get into what else I was doing this week, but if you want to expand on that, I mean, one thing I think where we're at now, like we rated on Tuesday for the first time in a few weeks. I had a decent turnout, like 21, 22 people. So we were able to do the heroic skip and get back through Mythic Rashanan, but like a bunch of people, it was their first time on these Mythic bosses. It was a little dicey. We wrapped up, maybe 20 minutes early or something with Rashanan, and I was just like, guys, I don't think it's a good idea to even pull Princess because not enough people have seen it. Some of us have pulled it 100 times. Like, what's the point? And everybody's like, yeah, we don't want to do it. So that was it. I was like, okay, well, we'll see if we come back tomorrow, whatever, plan A will be to pick it up at Princess. And I had like, I don't know, 12 or 14 people or something. So we did the middle 4 bosses on heroic. I have like 11 signups for tonight. So Raid's just canceled. There's nothing to do. I was kind of hoping we'd have sort of, I knew it was gonna be weird over the holiday weeks, but I figured maybe we'd have some momentum coming out of them, and instead it kind of went the other way. I don't know if we're gonna pull Nexus Princess again, to be honest, which is sad because we had just gotten to that like 100 pull threshold where we were starting to get some stuff together, and the appetite's just not there, and we have too many people who had those pulls in who are gone now. They're just rotated out for whatever reason. It's like, I don't want to bring somebody in fresh with 0 pulls and start this whole process again when we're maybe 7-8 weeks out from season and much of the team is very sour on this. So it just sucks because it was like, it would have been a killable boss if we could just kept the same 20-25 people. For sure. Coming back and pulling it, on raid nights, and it just didn't work out that way.
Yeah, there's a few things I've noticed since we've gotten PTR sort of schedule, which we'll talk about later in the show a bit more. But the PTR schedule to me being at least 8 weeks is what we're sort of seeing. Like the longest, I actually had to go look it up because I'm like, that feels like a very long PTR. The longest PTR we had was 99 days, but that was one that started just before Christmas holidays and ended after Christmas holidays. So it had the 2-week break in it, which means it was probably more like 85 days. So I guess this is sort of like a mid-range PTR length that they're going for with 8 weeks, but it does feel like a lot. And I think that a lot of people, if they felt some sort of pressure of like, hey, this is what I want to get done before season 2, would probably have had that momentum coming out of the holidays. But because we're so far out still from season 2, like we're months away from season 2, I don't think anyone feels any pressure like that at all. I think there's a very much a relax, hey, I didn't do a ton of WoW over the holidays. I'm still not really feeling like it. I'm catching up on work. We got other stuff going on, et cetera, et cetera. You know, our raid team's looking at, hey, maybe we'll drop down to 1 day if we can do it and just do a 1 day clear and relax a bit and et cetera, et cetera. And I definitely feel like there's going to be that spin down that happens over the next 6 to 7 weeks. And then that crush that happens of trying to get back into it again. And as we sort of ramp into season 2, because I mean, we're looking at, a lot of people are saying February 25th based off of launch timelines. You could lean towards March 4th is another possibility, which is kind of what I lean towards if they're going to be doing launch timelines this far out. I wanted this thing to be out like early to mid-Feb is what I was hoping for, like, you know, much earlier on. And so
it's a little ambitious, but yeah,
I'm quite disappointed that we're not looking at that as far as timelines go, because I feel like we are going to hit that slump as people disengage over the next 2 months, and so it'll be frustrating trying to get back into it.
It's going to be people checking out, you know, more and more over the next few weeks, and I mean we might get into it a bit more with the Turbulent Timeways schedule that got published last week after we recorded, but yeah, I'm pretty sure that, you know, my thinking is patch is going to be February 25th. So about like 6 weeks from this week's reset or something. And then, you know, it'll be the gap week where we have season 1 in-game content on season 2 patch data. And then season 2, March 5th or whatever that, you know, regional reset is the first week of March. So, you know, yeah, that is still like, it's not that far away, but when you are trying to organize a group and keep people, you know, motivated and having fun together, it is a long time to try to stitch stuff together. But, you know, for me, it's like, it's kind of a bummer because I think we could have gotten this boss, and it also sucks to have put so much time in and to have not gotten it. And I think that's what it's going to end up being. So it is what it is. I think for me, like, the big thing is going to be, let's cut down to as many 2-night weeks as we can, or maybe even less, honestly, like a 1-night week. If that's where people are at, then that's where we're going to be. And you know, like this week so far I did 6 keys. Just, I don't even know why. I don't need anything out of the vault. I just like doing keys with my buds, and you know, if something cool comes out of the vault, cool. We are sort of at the point of the season where it's like, all right, who's got Dawnbreakers, who's got Miss Satyrna Scythe, and just like slamming the same dungeon over and over again because they're fast and easy. And then I make people do Grimbatol because I love it. Like, it's just my favorite dungeon to do. So I'm like, oh, who's got the Grimbas? Let's go. You know, but yeah, I might get to the point where I'm just emotionally and psychologically okay with doing like 4 keys every week. And like, I don't need crest. I don't need gear. My gear, I'm extremely happy with where my gear has landed. There's 2 items out of the vault I could possibly get where I'd be like, yeah, I guess I would take that, you know, and then it would be like a side grade, you know, maybe 3 items if I'm really stretching it. It's like, I don't, other than the social experience of just like hanging out with the buds and, you know, doing dungeons, it's like, there's no goals there. We're not pushing rating. So I don't know, maybe we start doing 12s or something and see if we can do something different, but
get practiced on them for when you want to do them to get no decay.
Maybe try to get up into that echelon. Maybe I kind of like the affixes though. Like, I mean, well, I don't like this week's affix. We'll talk about that in a minute. But you know, I do kind of like that variety. So I don't mind doing 10s and 11s, but I think
it feels weird. It feels weird to go into a 12 and not have affixes and be like, oh, we're just missing that entire element. Like, there have been times where our tank has been sneaky and snuck in like a 14 or something into a thing when we think we're doing an 11, and you're suddenly like, well, where are the affixes? This is weird. Wait a minute.
You're waiting for that buff to come in.
Exactly.
You never get it. Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know. That's just kind of what I'm grappling with right now, just as like a player and as somebody who's in charge of a group, is kind of scheduling expectations and trying to even temper my own expectations a bit. I can't control where other people are at or other people's behavior. I'm not going to recruit people for like a mythic prog team at this point. Like, that's not what we do. So when we run out of gas, we're out of gas. We'll see you next season. And then also just managing my own kind of attitude, schedule, and expectations around Mythic Plus. And I should start ramping down, but if other people are up for it, then, obviously I'll tank for them.
Yeah.
I did get all the guest relations stuff done before it went away. I did that Monday night going, oh man, how much of this do I have left?
There's a lot, man.
Can I get this done? Like, I had done the first chapter of the main storyline and like half the side quests.
Yep.
The problem was coming in late, I couldn't tell which was which. So I kept doing all these side quests, and they send you all over the entire game world, everywhere.
Yep.
And I'm like, I don't understand this. Like, did I finish the main storyline? No, it was just one of the quests that I hadn't picked up and pursued. So as I started, digging through more of them, it made more sense. I got to say, I thought the main quest line was actually really good. I talked about it, I think, like last week or 2 weeks ago. I'm like, I don't really like it, but it's because I was just doing these like far-flung side quests that some of them were cool and some of them weren't so cool. But it didn't really, it wasn't cohesive, right? But I thought the main storyline was really good and well done. I had fun with it, and some of the side quests were great. The Scroll Sage Nola one, man, that'll get you for sure. That was really that was really nice tribute. The actress who played Nola, she passed away after BFA came out, so that was a cool way to pay tribute to her, and it came off really well. I loved that, and I thought the main story was really fun. So I'm glad I did it, and I got my detective title and all that, and it's just, I think I needed that urgency of like, dude, they're shutting this off tomorrow. Like, you have to finish these quests now. So that's what I did.
Yeah, those of us who played a lot during BFA definitely had our heartstrings pulled on by that one. I do wish there was more Turtle Made It to the Water references in it, but I think it is pretty awesome to see what they chose to do. So I was very happy with that as well. As far as anniversary event goes, I'd finished everything a while back. It was just maintenance mode. I'd picked up the Warbound scroll stuff for Shaman and Rogue just in case I wanted those later on, because I didn't know when they're coming back. We have a whole follow-up post that we'll talk about during this episode about what's still available, what's going to be available, what might not be available for years based off of the anniversary event. So we'll get you guys all informed on that. This is the other advantage to having those characters drop out of not being able to do their historian quest anymore. I did Turbulent Timeways, and so I'm just doing Turbulent Timeways by rotating characters that need to be leveled through Turbulent Timeways, because that's the easiest way to do it as far as like actually gaining benefit from experience. So you basically just queue. For those who are curious, you just queue into Turbulent Timeways, which is just the time walking event for the week. And you just get the quest the moment you get into your first dungeon that you accept to complete 5 of them. And once you've completed 3, you then get a buff that on your 4th run that then converts the experience buff that you've been gaining into being a 40% buff. And it's just a big old fancy buff. So certainly worthwhile doing for experience gain and whatnot. And again, we'll talk about it more later in the show in depth, but I was doing that. That was the other thing I did was threw up the tracker from my achievement tracker to see how many I had done, which was 0, and then did my 4 dungeons, and my 5th dungeon completed the quest, which got me 1 towards 5. So next week I need to do 5 more and just continue doing that. And I'm sure I'll level a few characters doing that as well. So yeah, certainly worthwhile checking out Turbulent Timeways. Okay.
Nice. Yeah, I had it in my head like I should do that this week, especially with the better reward. I should take the alts at least.
Yeah.
I ended up doing it.
Do it once. Just do it once.
I still got time. I got some time, so maybe I'll squeeze it in before reset.
I dislike searching for Timeways and pulling up the feat of strength that I did not earn back in Dragonflight and being like, it's just sitting there incompleted forever.
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, the first time it came around, that was when I was in Japan.
Yeah, as I said, I was traveling. So, like I missed a week, and you get screwed. You just missed a week.
Yeah,
like,
I didn't have time to. That
so,
was. I think they ran it one other time, but it was like a late expansion thing, and it's like, I'm not doing this, so I don't know.
Yeah. So,
but hey, you don't have to do every week, so maybe I will get in there before it's in the next couple of weeks and make it.
You have to do it 5 weeks in a row in order to do it. So yeah, you got to get in there for sure. All right, with that, let's hop into what's going on this week in World of Warcraft. All right, we cycled into Warlords of Dror Timewalking, where characters level 10 and up can do Timewalking versions of Auchindoun, Bloodmaw, Slag Mines, Everbloom, Grimrail Depot, Shadowmoon Burial Grounds, and Sky Reach. And you can get yourself some 554 eye level gear out of that at max level. Obviously, the gear that drops scales to your level. So if you're someone who's trying to gear a character that leveled up through anniversary event, turning in Historian quests, who might have, say, 200 eye level, even though they're level 70 something and should be wearing close to 500 eye level. This is really helpful because it feels really bad to try and do any content at 200 eye level. And it's really tricky to gear up a character because everyone who sells green sells them to 10 to 15,000 gold. So yeah, you're kind of, stuck with how to get gear on that character. World quests are your friend. I'm just going to say that if you can manage to do some world quests on your character by skipping the storyline stuff, you can help gear those characters a little bit over time. You might take you a few days to do it, but then you can get some gear out of doing that. There are some craftables that are cheap that at level 71 and 72 that you can put on, but good luck finding a weapon. That's kind of the crazy thing to try and find. And there's no vendor or anything that sells anything, and there isn't like a default crafted set that you can make for characters level 70 and above or 71 and above, which is really sad. So yeah, the game kind of has a flaw in that spot, which is why I'm highlighting it right here, even though it doesn't necessarily fit here as well as it might. But complete the quest for the Turbulent Timeways, or the time walking that you're doing, and you get yourself a cache of heroic Norabar Palace rewards. If you're max level, you can only pick that quest up when you actually are inside Dornegal and pick that up at max level. If you're not max level, you do get a cache that has a piece of gear appropriate to your eye level. It did fill in a gap at one of my 200 eye level pieces, so that felt really good to get like a 518 or a 524 piece that went into that slot. Felt really good for leveling stuff. So keep that in mind as well. And it means the Sign of Iron buff is up, which increases your reputation gains from combat and quests in Warlords of Dror. So if you're a reputation hound who's going back and trying to earn either particular rewards from the Paragon bags of maxing out your reputations, or if you're just trying to get the reps that you might have missed out on, this is a week to go back and do Warlords of Dror stuff to make sure you get that all taken off the list as well. Anything you want to add in here about time walking, Jason?
No, I mean, I think you covered it pretty well. We did, like last week, it wasn't really clear that Turbulent Timeways was starting to me when we were assembling the show last week. The blog wasn't out yet. They didn't put the blog out until after everything had started up. And the in-game calendar, when I was looking at it, it didn't jump out to me that was what was going on. So we were sort of talking extemporaneously like Miss Pandaria would be back in this rotation. It will not. So if you were hearing this before regional reset, like if you have Pandaria business to do, get it done before reset.
Yeah.
Because this is the beginning of the rotation. It will not start and rotate back through. So just a disclaimer on that. And yeah, I mean, like, it is a great opportunity to it is weird because it's primarily for like leveling, and if it's like your first character in War Within, then it's actually a terrible way to level because you'll zoom and then you won't have any gear and you won't know what you're doing. On an alt, it's okay because if you have a character that you've done endgame stuff on, you have some way to funnel stuff to them, right? Like whether it's the Resonance Crystal, Renown gear, there's stuff that you can trade for other various currency like Undercoin or Valor Stones or whatever. You can get that bind on account gear. You probably have Warband gear if you've been doing stuff on a main. So that's no problem. But if it's your first and only character, I don't know. It's like, yeah, you could zoom up leveling, but I wouldn't really even recommend it. You want to kind of experience the game world in War Within, the game systems, like play through all that stuff once. So
yeah,
it's like that's the big draw is the XP buff, and the heroic piece of gear is great, but you're only going to get one piece a week of that, which is, it's still good, but it's not like it's some kind of vector for you to gear up with. It's just a cool bonus. So it's great. I mean, that's a nice piece of gear for not a lot of work, but
yeah,
you're not going to get enough volume of it for it to matter that much.
If I was going to pick a leveling path for someone who is new to the game, I would probably choose for them to hop in and level up to like level 10 or whatnot in their starting area, and then do a BFA level and level your character up to 70 in BFA is what I'd probably pick for an expansion. And then I'd probably go from that to doing Dornegal and going through the current expansion content to level up the rest of the way to 80. That's probably the route I would go. The time walking would be a fun way to sort of fill in time as you're leveling through BFA and try and get a whole bunch of levels out of that, because you're going to want to do your Turbulent Timeways, and we'll talk more about it, but that experience buff is massive. So you're going to want to do, like, start off your leveling session by getting that buff rolling, and then you got several hours where you just have this buff, which is great, and you just have to do one time walking dungeon to refresh it, as opposed to having to do another chunk of them, as long as you're doing it before the buff expires. And so you just, like, it's a really neat way to sort of level. So I would certainly say that's probably the route I would take, just because I think for me BFA stands out as a really good leveling experience that has some really interesting storylines that are very zone based, which means if you get in and do like just one zone, and that's all you sort of level in because you've got this huge experience buff and you're, you know, doing time walking every now and then, you'll get a really good experience out of that one zone. And the overarching story isn't like something that's so critically important that you're going to be left at a huge cliffhanger if you don't move on and do the next zone, kind of thing, which I like. So that's kind of where my mind goes. There's part of me that's tempted to be like, do Dragonflight, because then at least you get to know dragon riding and how dragon riding works and experience that and whatnot. But I do feel like there's so much going on still in that expansion that just traveling around that world, you're going to stumble into max level events that are going to throw you off because they're designed around having a lot of people there to do. And so I think you're going to hit those weird walls every now and then of traveling into an area and being like, why are these elementals like so hard to kill? And what are all them doing? There's like a progress bar that I just can't seem to fill. Like, what is happening? Like, that will happen a lot in that expansion. So I do feel like it just doesn't ring out to me as like yes, this is a good starting experience for someone who's just getting into World of Warcraft.
I do think War Within is really like in more ways than usual with an expansion. It's more of a direct sequel to Dragonflight in terms of gameplay and systems than anything else, though. So, like, if you just kind of work your way through, I think it does introduce you to more stuff that's relevant in War Within than older expansions. So I guess it just kind of depends on what you're looking for out of the experience. But yeah, it is. There is a weird gulf with like a brand new character, like a new player coming in, and it's like, oh, here's this thing. Like, we're pointing you towards it. It's, you know, we're putting out website posts about it, and it's, you know, you have this like we have this call out in your buff row in game and all, and like it's just really probably an actively bad idea for a brand new player to do.
Yeah,
because you can come out the other end of this with like a really long road ahead of you in terms of just getting up to speed with gear for a fresh level 80 even, you know, and that would be really unfortunate. So I don't know. It's incredible for alts. It's really what it comes down to. If you have a character who's worked your way through renown, you can buy the different, you know, renown rewards and everything with the resonance crystals, then this is great, man, because you'll get a ton of XP, and then if you get to max level, you get that heroic raid gear, and you could get that every week for, you know, the end of this reset, and then the next 6 weeks, I guess it is, and then on top of whatever else you could procure for account bound stuff. So if you're trying to maybe switch mains or whatever heading into season 2, now is the time to be doing that for sure.
Yeah. All right, the Pet Battle bonus event is also going on, where the Sign of the Critter buff is up, increasing experience gains from pet battles by 100%. And there's the quest to win 5 PvP pet battles, which gets you an ultimate pet battle training stone, instantly leveling a pet to level 25. The Call of the World Soul is currently in its final week, I think, before it rolls away. So if you have not hopped in and done your Call of the World Soul yet, you're going to want to do that soon, because we had it 2 weeks ago, and we had Disc Fragments last week, so you can pick that up as well as a quest before it goes away 2 weeks from now. But this week is the Delves of Bran as the fresh and new one. So if you haven't done your delves yet and you're listening to this before reset, be sure you get those delves done, turn that quest in, because there's a fresh quest coming out that you can do to get yourself a Spark Fragment and, you know, some gear and Valor Stones and gold and all that kind of fun stuff out of there. But yeah, this is the three week rotation where we have Call the World Soul into Disc Fragments, into Delves, and they just repeat over and over and over again. So be sure you're keeping up to date with those if that's something that matters to you. Each of these counts as one of those rewards towards world activities. Keep that in mind as well, because actually the Call the World Soul one's great because it counts towards 2 of them depending on which one you pick. If you chose to do like Theater Troop counts plus the Call the World Soul counts. So that's 2 factors towards that. So if you're someone who, like me, was like, hey, I want to take it easy for a couple of weeks, I'm just going to focus on getting sockets, it's really nice to be like, oh, all right, I'll, run a couple of delves, I'll do my Call of the World Soul, I'll get my Titan Disc Fragments, I'll kill the world boss. Hey, look, I'm done. Like that's really nice to sort of get through that stuff. And part of that's the same thing of like adding in the contributing the 3 crystals towards the spreading the light event. That also counts towards it. Like there's a bunch of things that count towards it that are really easy to sort of, if you're towards the end of your week and you're like, oh, I've only done 4 Mythic Plus, I want to get 3 other events in or 2 other events in really quick to make sure I at least could choose a socket if my Mythic Plus choices suck. There's lots of ways to sort of get that last little bit in to get the extra coin you need to buy a socket. So be sure you're taking advantage of that as well. Okay. The PvP Brawl is going to be Deep 6. That's 6 players pitted against each other in Warsong Gulch, Silver Shard Mines, and Temple of Kot Magoo. Each battleground offers a little variation on the traditional format, such as the flags are a bit closer inside Warsong Gulch. There's less carts on Silver Shard Mines and only 2 orbs in Temple of Kot Magoo. I actually enjoy this brawl when you queue it up with some friends because it feels like you have a lot more impact. That smaller, more tight-knit team means that your contribution feels like it's more substantial and you can make more of a difference. Even if it's just you and your buddy sort of off in a corner doing something, you're less likely to run into, overwhelming odds against you, and you can actually feel like you've actually contributed a lot. So Deep 6 is kind of neat. You want to check it out as a brawl, you can. Get yourself some Marks of Honor, Conquest, and Honor. Okay. World boss is Orda, the deep walking giant in Ashkahet. So if you want to get in there on Tuesday or Wednesday and try and knock this boss out, this would be a great way to get that, 50 Titan Disc Fragments if you're not in a group. And that will certainly help contribute towards your, Titan Disc Fragments that are going to be going away the week after next. So hope you catch up and finish that quest if you haven't yet. Also, if you kill it not in a group, it counts towards your vault. So that's another nice thing to do. So certainly worthwhile as well. I can't believe they haven't fixed this yet. I'm actually shocked that this world quest bug for world bosses is still happening. It is bizarre to me that we have gone this long into this expansion. Maybe it's something that comes in with season 2 as a fix, but it feels like a really long time to have a quest that when you're in a raid group you can't complete that should be completable within a raid group. It feels like a really long time. So I'm surprised we're still hanging in there for that. When it comes to Mythic Plus affixes, we have Oblivion as this week's coming up affix, which means crystals spawn and move towards an enemy while in combat. If the crystals reach the target, the enemy gets 10% damage reduction per crystal. If players absorb the crystals, they get a Mastery Leech buff. This is a mediocre buff. It's certainly in the top 2, though, in my opinion. It's just not super, super powerful, but it is noticeable. So I would say, it's a good one to grab. But it's also one of the hardest ones to stop the boss from getting, because these things can spawn in locations that make it incredibly difficult to get them. So that's a factor. I was really curious, actually, unfortunately it's not the case, if in Siege of Borealis on the last boss, if he absorbs a whole bunch of them, whether the cannon just doesn't do its full damage to him. Fortunately, that's not the case. They caught that one, because that would be really awkward to be like, I fired the cannon shot, it did 90% reduced damage, so how do we finish the fight? Because we don't have any more cannon shot. It's just that was the last one. That would be very strange. So yes, they did in fact ensure that wasn't the case, but in general, this is a hard one to stop bosses from getting. Most likely mobs that you see will be getting at least a 10 or 20% damage reduction on a consistent basis, and you won't be getting your full Mastery Leech buff. So that is an unfortunate thing about this week, but it is what it is. And then outside of that, it is Fortified week this week, and we get Tyrannical kicking in at 10s. So it will be a week, fortunately, that bosses are a bit easier to kill, which means even if they get that 10% reduction or 20% reduction, maybe it won't be that bad. But we'll have to wait and see. How do you feel about affixes this week?
It's like middle of the road. It's by far my least favorite bargain, Oblivion, and it is going away, so we're only going to see it a couple more times, because apparently we're not alone around here in our dislike of Oblivion.
Yeah.
The buff is pretty good. Like the Mastery and Leech, it's
better than
nice
max health and crit. That's all I'm saying. It's better than max health and crit.
I think so, and I think it's better than a little bit of move speed and haste.
Yep,
so
agree.
it's like it is one of the better buffs, but yeah, it's hard to stack it all the way up. It just is. The enemy's probably going to get 1 or 2 each rotation. sometimes the enemy gets a lot more because sometimes the crystals spawn when you have to move to a specific spot in the room, like against machinists in Stone Vault.
Yep.
Like you got to stand where you got to stand there, and the orbs are going to go. They kind of beeline for enemy targets that are in the field of play. And also there's some logic where, like, if there's no viable enemies, then they move towards players, but that gets really confusing because if, I don't know, a boss phases or does some kind of animation where it like moves away or whatever, and then the orb starts moving towards you, but then an ad spawns in and it starts moving towards the ad. It's like, where is this thing even think it's going? How do I get it?
I've watched them do a circle before. I've actually watched an orb travel towards something and then just start doing a right turn and then start doing a left turn and then just the whole circle. And you're like, what is it doing? Like,
it can be kind of unpredictable when there's a lot of stuff happening in the field, and there are plenty of fights in this dungeon pool where ads spawn in, or there's a bunch of targets or whatever, or the stuff is just in weird positions, and then the orbs start being really unpredictable. So it's tough. It's very disruptive. It requires a lot of movement in general. Even against like single target fights, a lot of times there's just dead space all over where you're fighting. Or think of I don't know, last boss in Grimbatol or second boss in Arakara. Like it'll spawn behind the boss in areas where players can't go. And so what do? You just have to kind of resign yourself to the fact they're going to get them. And then like load up some cooldowns for their next big hit. I get like that doesn't feel great. It feels like you're getting punished for something you couldn't really control. And I think that's why I dislike Oblivion so much. So it is what it is. We'll only see it probably a couple more times in rotation before it's gone. And we'll see if the next one is better or worse. Low rank Fortified is good, at least for players who are trying to work their way up the system and still get some kind of seasonal reward out of it. I think it just makes things a bit easier. The burden of execution is so much lower on bosses up until level 10. So that gives you a chance to start getting up there and getting some decent rewards for yourself and really learning more about the dungeons if you're working your way up still. So I don't know, kind of a mixed bag. Even though it's an Oblivion week, I think there are a couple factors that, I guess this is the good Oblivion week to get, at least the Fortified one.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. This might be the week where for my crew, people are like, well, I'm okay with 1 or 4 dungeons this week. Like, I'll see you guys. We'll see what happens. I wouldn't be sad if people aren't jazzed up to do, a full vault worth of Oblivion keys this week.
Yeah. Okay, we got a blue post in here from Linksy about the 20th anniversary event ending, and lets everyone know that Incognito, the indecipherable Fell Cycle secrets, Alex will make their way to Dornogal after the event ends and continue to offer clues to the locations of the celebration crates. You can find and return all 11 celebration crates to earn the Azeroth's Greatest Detective that rewards the title The Detective. That will begin your investigation into the Incognito, the indecipherable Fell Cycle. I will say that this also requires stuff from Hallow's End. So most likely you won't be finishing this if you're just getting this now, unless you were wise enough to buy the things from Hallow's End previously. You'll just be waiting until next year anyways. So if you didn't get it, I imagine this is just one of those permanent things where Alex is around and you can sort of do this at your own leisure and get the detective title and actually be able to have that as a checked off the list. You could start the quest chain and then be like, all right, when's the next event coming around that I need, that's limited time that I need to get stuff from, and sort of work out all those timelines that you need to do. So these are one of those really vast, expansive sort of secret community things that requires a long time and a lot of gathering of things to be able to do. So it's definitely something that I think some folks might be looking at next year to get their fancy fell cycles for. But if you are missing the tools required for secret hunting after the event ends, don't worry, you can still get the tools, but through the Secrets of Azeroth quest line introduced in Dragonflight's Fracture in Time update. So provided you have completed Dragonflight's Fracture in Time update content, you should be able to get the Secrets of Azeroth quest line that then lets you get the secret finding tools, and you'll be able to still get the tools you need to find the crates and do that sort of stuff. So keep that in mind as well.
Secrets of Azeroth was pretty awesome. It was super fun. I loved that when that came out in Dragonflight. So, if you just didn't play back then or whatever, and you haven't done this stuff, but you're into that kind of gameplay, then it's worth your time, and maybe this is a good time to investigate it while we're in the tail end here. Yeah. And I mean, if you just want the rewards and you don't care about it, you could just obviously look up what to do for all this stuff. But the way they put it together and the way they use tools in the game was pretty unique and interesting, and it was cool to see them carry it forward as part of the anniversary event. So I'm glad they left at least some of this stuff in. I guess like the storyline quests you cannot get from Alex at this point, but you can do the crates at least. So, there's 2 different achievements around the crates, and you need to do 2 of the 4 achievements overall to get the detective title. So as long as you go get all the crates, then you can get the title still. Yeah. I'm glad they left at least some of that stuff in. And of course, like getting the fell cycle, it's a whole ordeal. It's one of those secret mounts that requires all kinds of research and, people like the hive mind of people putting all this stuff together. And then, even with a guide, it's still pretty involved. So
you'll get to the point where you can see it on a stand surrounded by candles and it looks awesome. And then you're just like, okay, you've now begun the journey to get it. And you're like, right. Okay. So I just spent all this time getting to this point. Now the actual, journey begins.
Now I'm actually going to start doing it. Right. Yeah. So I'm really glad that they didn't put any kind of time limit on that, because it's a thing that is very involved, and also it might be cool for players to discover who weren't playing in the last 2 months or whatever. So that's cool. It's still in there, but yeah, you are going to need other stuff around it, and you are going to need to have done Secrets of Azeroth from 2 years ago, whenever that was now coming up on. But it's all worth doing. I think it's super fun content to do.
And if you're someone who really want to get the legacy and anniversary items and you didn't get them this go around, this is the bad news. All right, folks, the legacy anniversary item vendors will not be returning next year. And it will likely be at least 5 years, if not more, before we see them again. If there are any items you want from this vendor, unfortunately, that was your last chance this past week. So you're out of luck. Most likely, we will not see those anniversary item things return. That's like the gear that is transmog for the ring and the shield and the helm and the sword and whatnot from that staff get, those versions that came into the game, as well as potentially those tier sets. I imagine might be part of it too. That we're not going to see returning. So I
hope not. I think it'll definitely include the stuff where there's the vendor that had all the old anniversary gifts.
Yeah,
like the Oni Whelpling and the Molten Corgi and all that stuff. It sounds like that stuff will definitely be gone, and we'll see what else counts as legacy. I mean, will the new stuff be back? They sort of made it sound like the redone tier 2 sets would be an annual thing. So we'll see if that ends up being the case. The new stuff, like the employee style gift, shield, sword, crown, don't know. It's not like a legacy item because it's not old, but it might be in that category. So they didn't specify exactly what, but
I feel like that vendor's just not coming back. Like I feel like there's certain vendors that they're just not going to respawn in the game. Like that's what I feel like.
I feel like it's a mistake not to bring back the legacy vendor.
I agree.
I don't really see what the benefit of that is. Like, you want people to get value out of their subscription, and it's a cool way to celebrate the game and its history. And like, I don't know, man. What does it matter if,
I was gonna say,
if somebody gets the Molten Corgi who didn't do the MC LFR thing from the 10th anniversary? Like, let them get it, and it's still only going to be available during the anniversary event window, right? So I don't know. I think
this isn't one of those things. I just want to point out, this isn't one of those things where someone flexes on another person because they have something that the other person doesn't. Like there's that feeling that everyone talks about of like, oh, back in the day in original World of Warcraft, this person would be wearing the tier 3 Nax Ramus amazing tier set, and you'd walk past them and you'd be like, oh man, that's wicked. Where did you get that? That's so cool. You look so awesome. Oh, that's such hard content. I can't believe you got that. The Molten Corgi is not something where someone's gonna be walking through Ironforge and be like, where did you get that? And they'd be like, oh, I was at this anniversary celebration and I spent some tokens on it. And you're like, oh, that's really cool. Does it come around again? No,
Right.
there was just the one time. The next time could be in 5 to 10 years. And you're like, why? Like, what?
Yeah, like maybe check back in for the 25th. I don't.
Like, what?
I don't think it really provides any kind of value to anybody.
Yeah.
Like it there's no prestige around these items for the people that got them this year. And then if somebody missed out and is, new to the game next year, or they
I
just
picture
didn't play,
people who get deployed. Like I picture military gets deployed. They weren't able to play for the couple of months because they were deployed. They come back, they missed out on it, and they can't get it the next year. Like, come on, man.
Yeah, and see you in 2029.
Yeah.
Like I just don't get it. Like, make the anniversary event super cool and fun every year. Like, you could just rerun this exact same thing next year and put like one new pet in there or whatever, and it would be great. Like, they had to go big for 20, and they had to do something over the top and huge, and they did that. I think the event came off really well, and it was fun to collect all the stuff. But so why not just like have that opportunity? We knew, like, you kind of think with experience over the last 20 years that like the anniversary event is going to shift from year to year, and you're not going to be able to get the same stuff every time, and stuff is going to be one and done or whatever. But like some of these rewards, I mean, that Onyxian Whelpling is from 2009, dude.
Yeah.
Just let people buy it with Time Warp badges every November. Like, please, I don't know, make people feel good about the money they spend on the game. That's my whole thing with it.
Yeah, it's what I see with these situations where there's no piece of this that is prestige anymore. Once you put it into the game the second time as part of this anniversary event, it lost the prestige it had of, I was there in 2009 and I got this thing and it's cool and crazy. And yes, you can't get it unless it happened. The moment you put it in the second time for like 2.5 months to earn, people got it. And a lot of people got it. And at that point, you're like, okay, you've now diluted that pool of people who had this thing by such an extreme amount that just let everyone have it. It's like the Twitch drop thing. Once you've done that, everyone has it. Like, let's just, let
whatever prestige it had is definitely obliterated now.
Yeah.
Now you're just, and that's fine. I mean, especially when it comes to something like a pet or whatever,
Sure.
I don't have any problem with that. But yeah, once you kind of like let the toothpaste out of the tube, man, don't try to put it back in. Like I said, just bring it back next year, please.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Okay. As far as classic time walking vendors go, because obviously they were at the actual event this go around, you'll be able to find them when classic time walking rolls around. I think it's January 28th is going to be the next week where they kick off. You will be able to find them inside of Stormwind and Orgrimmar. You'll have Boba Dormu and Grana Dormu hanging out inside of Stormwind and Orgrimmar, where you can get the time walking rewards from them if you haven't picked them all up yet. I bought most of them just because I wasn't sure how this was going to work, and I just wanted to be safe and have the things I wanted to have off of them. But there's a lot of transmog off of these guys. If there's like weapons you wanted and whatnot, there's a lot of transmog. So if when they roll around again, certainly have a look at what you might want. So pick some of that up. And then last but not least, if you're someone who didn't spend all of your bronze celebration tokens, they were all automatically converted into time warp badges, and they were converted at the same rate as the vendor had there. So you didn't miss out or lose any or anything like that. I do think that if it hasn't converted yet, this actually goes live with Undermined. So when the actual Undermined patch goes live is when you're actually going to have that conversion take place, if it didn't happen for you already. So just keep that in mind. They mentioned it here that the exchange will occur upon logging in for the first time after Undermined goes live. So I didn't know if they actually hotfixed it in or whether it actually is still there. So just keep that in mind. I haven't checked my tokens because I spent all of them. So, I was safe. I wanted to be sure I didn't have anything left over. So
after I finished the quest, that was, I went and bought all the boxes of badges. But yeah, this was a good call. I kind of wish they had publicized it prior to the event concluding. Like, listen, I know it's just a holiday break, and I believe me, I know. And I work in a corporate environment where communication is not always as timely as you'd like it to be, right? But like, this would have been a great post to put out like last Monday, or
3 Mondays
Thursday
ago?
the week before or whatever. This, they put this out after the event had already ended. I mean, we heard from somebody in the Starting Zone Discord this week who listened to the show and then got out of bed at 1 a.m. to go, run downstairs and spend their badges before, Tuesday reset. And I mean, they didn't really have to do that, although
I'm glad they
you
did.
got to wait. You're
Yep.
waiting. At this point,
Yep.
if you have bronze, you're waiting until patch. So
yeah, which means you're going to miss all of Turbulent Timeways. So you don't get those badges for that period of time, and it could be thousands of. I know I got at least 20 or 30,000 time walking badges out of the bronze that I was converting over throughout the event. So it's certainly something where, if you had a huge stockpile of bronze and you didn't convert it before the event ended, you are definitely missing out on a really nice Turbulent Timeways purchase period for all of that going on, especially if it was like, I had Mists of Pandaria or Warlords of Dror stuff that I wanted to buy. It's like, well, that stuff you will now see, in 8 months, like way down the line, next time it actually rolls around, or maybe next year is the next time you'll actually see some of that stuff come around. So I feel like there should be another Turbulent Timeways scheduled for next November. I'm just saying, put it in the books now, guys. Just schedule that in so that we can actually have a lot of this time walking stuff back for folks right around anniversary event time, especially if bronze and stuff like that is coming back, which we don't know yet. We don't know what that's going to look like. So keep that in mind. But while we're talking about Turbulent Timeways, there was a post that came out, as Jason mentioned, this past Monday. So we actually did get something here that says that, January 7th is when this kicked off, and it kicked off with Mists of Pandaria. And so you got to get out there and explore this past week. If you're someone who still has some time before reset, be sure you're doing your 5 Turbulent Timeways time walking dungeons. Because for a limited time, the time walking quests from the weekly quest giver activist in Dornegal will offer an increased reward. It's a heroic level cache of Nerubian treasures with items level 610 and 619. The reward upgrade is only available for the special time walking event. After Turbulent Timeways runs its course, the reward will return to 567 to 606 as a cache of Nerubian treasures as reward. This season of Turbulent Timeways is an excellent opportunity to get the new Timely Busby mount for completing the Master of the Turbulent Timeways Achievement 2 by earning the Master of the Timeways experience buff for at least 5 weeks during the Turbulent Timeways event. Getting the mastery of the Timeways isn't too challenging, but requires some nuances. Basically, you run time walking dungeons 4 times. That gets you the buff. So just all you have to do is just run them 4 times consecutively, and you will get that buff. The buff lasts 2 to 3 hours. So you just have to complete those time walking dungeons within each of the resets of those buff that's taking place. So as long as you're, getting it all done within, 20 hours, I don't know what that would end up being if you ran one every 2 hours. Actually be 8 hours. You'd be able to actually get this buff. I think it took me maybe an hour and 20 minutes to run the 5 that I ran, and you only had to run 4 to get the buff. It was 5 to complete the quest. And so that was pretty easy. That was not super complicated at all for me. It was just dedicating the time to doing it. And Mists of Pandaria is actually pretty great. The dungeons are pretty fast. There's only 1 or 2 that are a little bit weaker when it comes to actually getting in there and running them. But I had the full spread. I experienced 5 different dungeons every time I queued. So that was a neat thing. The buff itself increases your reputation gains. So basically you get 10% increased, sorry, not reputation, increases your experience gains. You get 10% increased experience for each tier of the buff, and the 4th buff you get then enhances the buff up it's 5% experience per run, and then the 4th buff enhances it by to 30%. So you get a 30% experience gain buff at the 4th one, and it's a good time. So certainly hop there and get it go. They also mention here, don't let time pass you by. Enemies and loot will be scaled to your level. Time walking dungeons also have a chance to drop items that usually drop when you run them on heroic, and you'll earn reputation with the associated faction while in the dungeon. While time walking is active, you will gain 50% bonus to the reputations earned from quests and creature kills for all reputations associated with that expansion, which we knew. And the rotation is Mists, Warlords, Legion, Classic, Burning Crusade, Wrath, Cataclysm. So next week is Warlords, as we've mentioned, top show, then Legion, and then it's going to roll back once we hit Legion to Classic. Then we see Burning Crusade, Wrath, and Cataclysm. So we'll end on Cataclysm on February 18th. That is the rotation for this. That was the initial, that's what's going to mean the patch hits on the 25th, because this is when Turbulent Timeways ends. And then they did something else. They went, hey, here's a dungeon rotation, and the dungeon rotation for testing is running that late too. So we're getting more and more hints that it's coming on the 25th, although I'm I think it might end up being a week later. I'm not sure. We'll see what they end up choosing to do. But in general, Turbulent Timeways, certainly worth hopping in there and getting the buff and leveling some characters and getting your Busby mount and all that kind of fun stuff.
Yeah, one cool thing they did too, which I actually didn't go and look yet. I got to remember to do this before Tuesday morning because I got to check out the Mist vendor anyway. The rewards from the previous Turbulent Timeways, the Sandy Shale Wing mount that you could get via a similar method to how you get the bee this time, that's on any Timewalking vendor any week, which is cool because I didn't get it from that rotation. I don't know that I really want it, but it's cool to have the option. And
yeah, they're not the prettiest mounts, man. Those Shale Wings they're flying weird diamonds, man. It's weird.
Yeah, I'm not really into them. I don't really care about the bee either, to be honest. So whatever. And also, I'm not a mount guy, as we've kind of talked about, for years on the show. Like they just don't really do it for me. There's certain ones that I think are cool, but I don't need to have every mount that exists ever. But I do think it's nice they put it back in this way. Because I missed out on the Shale Wing when it was around before, and so it just gives you another option. If that's how you want to go, I'll have to check it out and see. I mean, there's just it's tough to parse out right now because there are so many new Timewalking vendor items. Right, there's so much new stuff to buy on all these vendors. It's so many badges. It's like hundreds of thousands of badges or something worth of new stuff. But the Shale Wing is going to be time limited. Like after the week of February the 18th, that mount is not going to be in these vendors anymore. So that might bump it up the priority list just to say, okay, I have it. It's done. Check it off the list. So just something to keep in mind, I guess. But yeah, like we kind of talked about top of show, like really cool event for leveling alts or whatever. And especially if you're trying to main swap heading into season 2. And yeah, definitely a big piece of evidence that we're looking at, I guess we know for sure we won't see patch before the week of February 18th, right? And I think February 25th would be a likely spot for it to land. Maybe it slips another week or so from there, but, we can be pretty sure it's not going to be earlier than that. Because we have this event running and we have other testing and stuff going on. Yeah. So, but that, I think it gives you a good idea of sort of what to expect in the next, 6 to 8 weeks of stuff coming up in WoW.
Yeah. Okay. Raid testing schedule. So this is folks that are doing PTR. There is a character copy feature out there for you. So you can actually log in and copy your character over. And you do have to set your character up. There's going to be a bunch of things that, you need to actually adjust and fix. And a bunch of your add-ons and whatnot will probably not work. And there's just a bunch of stuff like that you have to sort of take the time to fix. But we know that this past weekend, there was a heroic boss that was tested. So folks were in there doing that. And I watched a bit of that testing take place. So it did look like it was going well. A lot of this raid looks very cool and very fun as far as the design goes. It's very goblin, as you'd expect. So that looks pretty fun. This coming Thursday, the 16th, we will see 3 more bosses tested on heroic. All right, these are 3 different bosses. They're going to take place at 11 p.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Pacific, and 1 p.m. Pacific. So that's 2, 3, and 4 o'clock Eastern time, if that's something you're wanting to hop into. These are entirely out of the question for me. I am in collective bargaining on Thursday, so I will definitely not be able to do any of this testing because it happens in the middle of the day. If you're someone who's on Central European time, this might work out for you. 8 p.m., 9 p.m., and 10 p.m. This is a little bit more available for you folks, so maybe you want to hop in and do some heroic testing. On Friday, the 17th, we're going to see 3 more heroic bosses tested that are all 3 different heroic bosses as well as the normal full raid, except Galliwick's the last boss, will be available for testing next weekend. It's going to start on Friday the 17th, and it's going to end on Monday the 20th. So it's starting at 2 p.m. Pacific time, so 5 p.m. Eastern on Friday, and ending at 9 a.m. Pacific time or noon Eastern on Monday. So folks will be able to hop in and try out the full raid. I know my raid team is planning to try it a couple hours before our raid time on Sunday, I think is the plan at the moment, and potentially just sort of like bump our raid to Monday if we need to, if it's kind of fun and we're enjoying it. So there might be some early peaks depending on how many of our raiders are around to do it. I know Thursday, the January 23rd, we're going to see mythic testing for 3 bosses. So we'll actually get some peeks at some of the mythic bosses. And then on Friday the 24th, there's going to be mythic testing for 4 more of those bosses. And I think this is just the big thing of being like, well, we don't want to show off Gallywix, but we're going to be sure that there is testing that takes place for at least the whole raid is what they're kind of leaning towards as far as bosses go. So folks can get in there and check it out. We know that there's going to be Raid Finder, Wing 1, Wing 2, and Wing 3 that will be available for folks to hop in and check out. And so the 24th to the 27th are the dates where you can hop in and queue up for those wings if you want to actually just check out the bosses and see them for yourself as far as that goes. It's a little weird to see Raid Finder testing, but I think they probably need it to do the scalability of some of these bosses to make sure that the systems are working the way they need to work and the mechanics are working the way they need to work. If they catch things like, oh, when you have 17 people, this is really, really hard, I'm happy that they caught it in this. That's where I find the Raid Finder testing could be useful. And then we know that as far as War Within Season 2 dungeons go, they are going to begin their test period on January 7th. It's going to end on the 14th. And basically, during this window, we're going to see the Operation Floodgate, the War Within Dungeon, Cinderbrew Meadery, Dark Flame Cleft, Priory of the Sacred Flame, and Rookery, as well as the Legacy Dungeons for Operation Mechagon Workshop and the Motherlode and Theater of Pain, all being part of that testing period. And that basically how they're sort of kicking it off is for Season 2 or then we are refining our testing format to better concentrate feedback and facilitate larger content and balance updates between each PTR cycle, along with a daily rotation of affixes for +2 to +12 keys. Each week will spotlight a subset of 2 dungeons for focused testing. So the things I was mentioning there is week 1, 2, and 3. And then on week 4, you're going to have the War Within Dungeons plus Operation Floodgate. And then in week 5, you're going to have the Legacy Dungeons plus Floodgate. And then in week 6, it's going to be all Season 2 dungeons. So we know that over a 6-week period, people will be in there testing Mythic Plus on a regular basis if they want to. I'm sure a lot of streamers will be, so you'll be able to watch a lot of them if you want to, just to make sure that those keystones are coming out the way they want. This feels like the most testing we've seen for dungeons out of any of these tests outside of a beta. Like outside of a beta, I feel like this is the most testing we've seen of a seasonal dungeon rotation. So I'll be curious to see what information they gain from that, because that's going to be a pretty big factor when it comes down to all this stuff. But yeah, that's our raid and dungeon testing schedule that they put out for us. So that's where a lot of people are placing their guesstimates about when content's coming out off of.
Yeah, I like the fact that they're really focusing the dungeon testing the first couple weeks on, a few, and especially starting off with like the one brand new dungeon, right? Operation Floodgate.
Yeah.
I mean, PTR participation is what it is. It's not going to be super high. It's a fraction of people that play the live game, a small fraction.
Yeah.
So, being able to funnel the people that are playing into fewer, content avenues is the way to go, I think. So I expect that these dungeons are going to come out and they're going to be really hard the first couple weeks of the season. And that between us gearing up and learning the dungeons and then, the surgical kind of tuning they did in Season 1, that wound up at a happy medium. But I also don't have any illusions that they're going to test like this and then the dungeons are going to come out feeling great. Like the dungeons are supposed to be hard for the vast majority of players the first few weeks. You should be getting 45 to 60 item levels or whatever over the course of the season, which is going to make them feel better. And yeah, there's going to be difficulty outliers and just straight up tuning mistakes or whatever, and they'll get corrected as people experience the dungeons. But at least this way, if there's any massive problems, they can kind of maximize the amount of data they have about Floodgate and about some of these dungeons that are getting really big overhauls. Obviously the War Within dungeons haven't been keystones before, so that's there's kind of a learning curve there in terms of how we as players react to them, and the returning dungeons aren't going to be the exact same. It's not just copy paste from those old expansions. The stuff is going to be changed, and then how does that feel to play? So we'll see that. I just hope that we get a fortified week the first week of the rotation. I feel like starting every season with a tyrannical week, it's okay, well, any attempts to sort of move up through the system just get stymied for a lot of groups, because you hit these bosses that you don't know how to deal with and that you're as weak as you're ever going to be all season, and then you just brick wall at the boss, and it feels bad. So
Yeah.
we'll see how that all rolls out. But the testing schedule. I mean, it's cool they're testing so much, and that they're leaving up, LFR testing for a while, and they're doing. I wish they'd do more than one full weekend for normal, but they also don't want. I think like a big thing is they don't want people getting like sick of the content before it even comes out. They don't want to leave like the raid testing, even normal, like up for the whole period for like 3 or 4 weeks or longer, because it takes sort of the shine off of the raid for some players before it even comes out, I think. So, you have these windows where you do it, and then, okay, well, we'll see you when the season rolls out.
Yeah, there's still a lot of people out there who would prefer PTR didn't show any of this content, and that Blizzard just employed enough testers and had enough time to be able to actually properly test content on their own without deploying a PTR, and sort of choosing to have players do a lot of that testing. I mean, obviously the argument stands of, hey, this allows players to give feedback about how things feel and what's going on with stuff, and Blizzard can make changes based off of that. The larger factor I think a lot of people forget, which is critical to me, is add-ons. The add-on creators need PTRs to be able to build out your LVUIs and everything else that you might want for that patch, to be able to actually have that content available to you as far as add-ons go towards launch or very shortly after launch, as far as those updates go. So if you're someone who uses add-ons at all, then you may be really happy that they do PTRs, because that's how these people get in there and able to design their stuff. I will also say, if you're someone who is on the argument side of Blizzard should just incorporate the things that people use add-ons for into the game, so they don't need add-ons at all, I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I will say that a lot of the add-ons that people use, the vast majority at least as far as downloads go, are cosmetic. Like LVUI is literally a cosmetic add-on for the majority of people who choose to use it. They just like the look of it more than they like the look of the base UI. And if that's the case, this isn't something Blizzard's just going to incorporate into the game. They're not going to give you like preset 5 drop downs of different ways your entire UI elements can look, and some of them are sci-fi fantasy, and some of them are actual like high fantasy, and some of them are original World of Warcraft, and some of them are classic World of Warcraft, and some of them are like, they're not going to do that. They're not. They're going to have one UI that you look at, and add-on creators are going to skin that UI and let you look at it the way you want. And Blizzard supports them doing that. So I would say that PTRs are really good in that format, and they might as well take advantage of getting player feedback on bosses and dungeons and raid encounters and whatnot while they are doing it. They might as well do that. So I'm not opposed to PTR, although I do like and understand entirely the surprise that some players want to get, where there's no data mined information and you're just walking into something fresh and new and exciting and recapturing that feeling from your childhood that you can't necessarily get back anymore. So I definitely get that as well. Oh,
I do, but I'm not in that category, man. I don't, you know what I mean? I want add-ons to work, and I want some kind of a guide or a video to watch before I try to bring 30 people into a raid, like,
yep.
And I think a lot of my players want that too. We want to maximize the time we spend in the game, and that means that PTR testing is essential for that, not for us to play it, but for people who have played it, and for boss mods to work and weak auras to work, and for there to be a strat video or whatever. It means we can walk in there ready to play the game. For Tactical Air Horse to put out the pineapple game, for the raid, like all that stuff we rely on that heavily, because we want to go in there and kill bosses, not explore how stuff works and read the dungeon journal to each other. And I'm not diminishing that. If you think that's cool, that's great, and that depends on the dynamics of the group playing together. But like for me and for my crew, it's like, all right, let's go in there and kill stuff.
Yeah, I get that. Okay, Season 2 Great Vault requirements. I like that Kaivex had to put this out, because for some reason it was floating around that the requirements for doing delves to actually get completion and world events for your Great Vault was changing to 1 as opposed to 2 for the first tier box. I don't know if this was data mined information or this is how PTR went live initially, But
I think it was just a UI thing in
yeah,
PTR.
it was something like that.
PTR is like so full of placeholders, and like you're not getting a great vault in there, so they probably don't have like up to date data in there. Like there was like screenshots going around for the Great Vault like panel,
and I don't know if those were data mined
data.
or if they came out on the PTR. I can't remember which one it was, but yes, there was definitely screenshots going around because I know people literally have tools that exist, Wowhead in particular, that let you actually like interact with an interface and fly around a world and look at what a map looks like and look at what every single element looks like. So I don't know if that's where it came from or if it came from actual PTR, but regardless, clarification post from Kyvax, they are not changing any of those reward tiers or the structure from season 1 to season 2. It is still 248 for that completion tier. So FYI, that's still a thing. They didn't change it and change it back. This is the issue with PTR. This is the issue with data mining, is often you get incomplete things and people make assumptions based off of them. So don't set your expectations based off of PTR, I guess is what I would sort of say. All right, Twitch drops. There is a Twitch drop coming up. We want to be sure we mention it so people can get in there, and I want to talk a bit about it because it's a misnomer in my opinion. There's plunder to be had when Plunder Storm makes landfall, and you can claim your piece of it by watching any World of Warcraft stream on twitch.tv. The start time is January 14th at 10 a.m. Pacific time, so 1 p.m. Eastern. And the end time is February 4th at 10 a.m. Pacific time or 1 p.m. Eastern. And you have to watch 4 hours of World of Warcraft content while these Twitch drops are active on any channel to earn the Coward's Azure Target Transmog, which literally puts a target on your back. And I want to highlight that if you're choosing to wear a target on your back, that is not a cowardly thing to do. So I'm confused as to why it's the Coward's Azure Target.
Well, because you're running away, and that's why you're getting shot in the back. Right? I mean, you are wearing a target on purpose, so that's the whole thing. But
like you're wearing a target on purpose. Like I feel like, and often you get hit in the back inside of Plunderstorm because you just don't see it coming, not necessarily because you're running away. So like,
I'm running away. I'm in the bush.
I would prefer that this was a flapping chicken that I wore on my back. I'd be like, I'm down for the Cowards thing.
Like, so this is a palette swap of an item that was, I believe it was a trading post.
I think it was
monthly bonus. It wasn't just like on the trading post. It was like the trading post reward for the month, which like was maybe the least exciting one. No, the one
watch.
That was like the watch. Yeah, that was the least exciting one. But this is like a solid candidate for number 2.
Yeah.
It's a palette swap of that. It is a unique item. We haven't seen it before. There's no other way to get it. Plus, like you can help out, your favorite Twitch streamers with hanging out in their channels. And yeah, Plunderstorm does start up. We didn't even mention it, I don't think. It does start up this week with weekly resets. We don't really know too much about what's going to be different with it, but I'm sure you're going to see a ton of people streaming it. So,
I know there's different abilities right off the bat. They revamped all the abilities.
Some different stuff. And like, we know the reward path is different. It's not a renowned track anymore where like you play. Yeah. Like you take, I believe you take the plunder that you earned in the game and then you go to a vendor to purchase the stuff that you want.
Yeah.
Which is better. I mean, that's a better way to handle it versus like you have to play this much Plunderstorm in order to get these rewards. I will say they put out a little teaser video on socials the other day of what's coming in terms of the rewards for Plunderstorm this time. And it's like dark palette swaps of all the stuff from season 1, the parrot mount and pet and the finery and the croc mount. So I don't know. I'm not feeling super motivated to like max out Plunderstorm rewards. I really didn't like the mode when it came out last year. And then they changed some stuff about it, and I played it a little more, and I sort of enjoyed it for what it was, and I wanted to get the renowned track done. And by the end of it, I liked it more or less. Like on balance, I liked it. It wasn't my favorite, but I had an okay time with it. Seeing what's on offer this time, like, dude, I think I might just be out. I'm in this ramp down kind of mode. I'm cool with spending less time in WoW, and like just to get like a dark version of the Plunder Lord's finery or the croc. Like I don't know, man. That's not really pulling me in, but I think that's okay. Like I think it's actually cool to be like, hey, if this doesn't do it for you, then don't play it. And if you like Plunderstorm, here's some new stuff. Like, it's new-ish stuff you can get. You were going to play Plunderstorm anyway, so please take this crocodile for your trouble. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I think that's fine. I don't want the pull, so if I don't end up playing it, I'll feel okay about it, and I think that's actually great.
Yeah, I think that there's certainly some aspects of it that are really attractive as far as rewards go and reward structure goes. I enjoyed Plunderstorm when I played with friends. Playing solo, it was much more of a punishing experience as far as like just, you know, sometimes you just had a really bad spawn, and sometimes you just weren't the first one to get an item, and sometimes you weren't. It was just like over and over and over again, and there wasn't as much silliness and joking around and having fun as there was when you had a buddy there with you. But I will say that towards the end of the event, once a lot of balance tuning and stuff had gone in, I did enjoy the event more. I am looking forward to the event this go around just to see what it's like. I am hesitant about whether or not I'll like it or not. I'm not sure, but it's certainly something that I'll try out for a bit. And it's certainly a limited time event. Like, we're looking at 3 weeks is what you got to get this done. And if you're not really dedicating time to it on a regular basis, I don't know what the currency earn rate is going to be like. But if it's anything like the first go around when they first started, you will be having to play this every single day to be able to buy all the stuff you want to buy.
Right.
If it's like it was towards the end of the season, then, you know, you might be able to do it in a week and a half. I think being able to do it in 3 or 4 days would be really nice. I think,
like, let's come in at that late
please.
event level. Like, we want, just give us the stuff, man.
Yeah.
I hopefully it will, because it was very stingy out of the gate, as they usually do, especially with new stuff. And then they had that kind of shift like a couple weeks in, and it was like, oh, this is the way it always should have been. Okay, I can play 1 or 2 games a day, get a renown rank, and I feel good about it, and I don't have to like grind it.
Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully it comes in at that level.
Yeah. And then the last blue post we want to cover here is actually just a general post that went out, which is about the celebrating 30 years of Warcraft with us. There's going to be like a tour that's taking place by members of the WoW team and something else. We don't really know necessarily what's happening at this. We just know that attendance is going to be limited. So you want to keep your eye on like when regional sales are going up. It's all run through Tixer, which is TIXR. And there's obviously links. There'll be links in the show notes, but there's links on the WoW website and all their socials and everything, where they're essentially starting out in London on February 22nd and traveling from London to Seoul, Korea, which is March 8th. And then from there to Toronto, Canada on March 15th. And then over to Sydney, Australia for April 3rd, Sao Paulo for April 19th, and then ending in Boston on May 10th for this World of Warcraft celebrating 30 years with us tour. I will say from a content creator point of view, there has been no communication as to what our involvement would be as content creators in an event like this, but obviously they'd be hoping to do something with local creators, I imagine. And when it comes to getting tickets for it and what tickets are going to cost and like that, none of that information is up yet. You can't actually buy tickets yet. So,
right.
Yeah,
I mean, they did put out some info that tickets would be free. Yeah, tickets are free to this, but limited. So you got to like register and get a ticket. This is speculation on my part, but I think it's pretty well-informed speculation. I believe the Toronto event is going to be at Fan Expo Canada or adjacent to it, and that the Boston stop will be similar with PAX East. Both of those events, the 2 North American events are, they're on weekends where there are giant conventions running in the cities that they're going to be in. Like, why are they in Toronto the specific weekend they're in? Probably because Fan Expo Canada is running that weekend. Why are they in Boston that specific weekend? Probably because PAX East is running. So, it might be something after hours at the shows or something. We don't have any other details right now other than dates and locations. My thought is, the Boston stop will probably be attached to PAX East in some way, even if it's like tangentially, like, hey, we're in this venue nearby the convention center or whatever. So we'll see. Like, they talked about this like mid last year when they first started talking about the anniversary celebrations, and said nothing else about it. And I figured, oh, well, I guess they're just not doing that. I was figuring it would be like maybe a small series of, like specific events that Blizzard was running. And it sounds like these are more tied into bigger events in various places, but we'll see once we get more details. have my eye on the Boston event, but I'm gonna need a lot more details. PAX East is like not my favorite show in the world to attend. I've been a few times, and I don't love that show. And not that you'd have to probably go to the show to attend, these celebrations. But while I was there, you'd think maybe I would, check out the show. Also, I used to be about, you know, 90 minutes from Boston, and now I'm significantly farther. So that makes it all a bit different as well. So we'll see. I mean, I'm interested in it. I'm interested to see what this is going to be. It's cool that they're doing it. And I mean, these are conventions, at least in terms of, I can't speak to, the other ones, but the North American ones are ones that Blizzard has attended many times in the past and done press for WoW at and everything like that.
Well, so I'll clarify one thing, which is it's not Fan Expo Canada happening then, because that happens in August. It's Toronto Comic Con that's happening during that weekend, from the 14th to the 16th, over that weekend in March. So that is one of those things. But yes, you're right. They have gone to Fan Expo Canada before and done that, but Fan Expo Canada this year is happening in August. So this is the Toronto Comic Con that's going to be happening over that weekend. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's likely that, these are tied to these other events. So we'll see. The weird thing, well, I guess we got a couple months, but like, a couple months goes by pretty fast. I have a lot of stuff going on. And if the Boston thing is going to be something I want to attend, I would love to have details for it right now. When and where is it, and what else do I need to know about it? And like, if there's press access, or if there's an ability to do press, then we don't have any details about that. They said there's gonna be developers there, so it'd be great to be able to participate in interviews or whatever, but no details. So we don't know. It's like an announcement of an announcement kind of thing, which is a bit frustrating. But we'll see. It's cool that they're doing it, and they're doing it in so many different places around the world this year, as different events roll through. So, it seems cool. It's a very cryptic announcement though. Hey, we're doing this thing. Come join us. Except you can't get tickets right now. We're not going to tell you like anything else about it, but please look forward to it.
Yeah. I will say, when we did PAX Boston, the creator side felt very intimate. It was like, there weren't a ton of devs, there weren't a ton of creators, and it was a really fun experience as a creator to be able to hang out, get the interviews in that you could, and spend some time. It was
good. Like, they took good care of us that year. Yeah,
it was well done. There was some weirdness that had to happen with it because it can be a little weird at PAX, but it was good. It was really well done. I was happy with that. If it's something similar to that, then it'll be interesting to see how they choose to do it. Because I know that there's going to be a lot of creators that want to go to these things and a lot of fans that want to go to these things. And if there's limited tickets and they're trying to make it more of like an intimate experience with very few people going, or like, only like 1,000 people can attend or whatever it is going to be cutthroat to get that kind of stuff. So we'll see how it all goes.
Yeah. If it's at like a House of Blues or something, right? If it's like that kind of thing, they got a VIP room and they can get like a couple hundred people in, that might be... it might be, super limited. We don't know. So anyway, something to keep an eye on. And if you're in or near or planning to visit any of these cities on this time frame, I mean, keep it in mind. I certainly will be. I'm not ruling out the Boston event, but I'm not all in on it either. I need more details right now.
Yeah. All right, man. With that, we'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons. They contribute a ton to our show and help us to improve on the content we create. Man, oh man, we have had a lot of support from our patrons over the years, and I'm very pleased to be able to continue to acknowledge the support that they give us, and I always appreciate you guys so much. So thank you so much for that. We have a newest patron today. No new patrons today, but as usual, we want to give a shout out to all of our faves. So thank you so much to Arajian, Celian, Dan, James Kapawi, Max, Chorl, Rager. Thank you so much, everyone who contributes. And man, oh man. Okay. If you want to find our Patreon, you can find it over at patreon.com/thestartingzone. And you can get, your hands on all those sweet rewards that come along with that as far as Discord and whatnot goes. And that might be shifting. We have some upcoming news that potentially could happen where we shift around how some of our Patreon stuff works. But that'll happen in the future. I think I missed Cobra. Yeah, I missed Cobra. Thank you, Cobra and Dustin. I missed you too, so I want to be sure I got you guys in there as well. But yeah, thank you, patrons. You contribute a ton, and we appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, patrons past and present, for everything you've contributed to the show and helped us out with. It means a lot, and it helps us keep the show on track, and keeps the show accessible to you, keeps it online and available for you to go back and check out the archives, or for people to discover for the first time and check out. So we couldn't do it without you. So thank you for chipping in and helping make the show what it is.
No. If you folks have enjoyed this episode of Starting Zone, another great way to support us is by leaving us those 5-star reviews. We have one from the US. We found it. Local Vengeance from USA, entitled First Time Listener, says, I'm new to World of Warcraft and was looking for a good podcast to help increase my knowledge about the game. Since I am newer to the game, not everything they talked about I understood, which is okay because I will eventually get there. Overall, I thought the podcast was great. I can easily give it 5 stars. These guys know their stuff and seem to have a lot of experience in the game. Highly recommend this, and we'll be tuning in every time a new show is up. Well, thank you so much, Local Vengeance, and we do them every week, so you'll have one on the weekly, and hopefully this can help you sort of catch up and get along with where everyone else is content-wise. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to us on Discord. If you want to, join our Discord over at startingzone.com/Discord, or you can contact the show and leave us your feedback via email at thestartingzone@gmail.com. We also have Twitter at The Starting Zone, and yeah, just feel free to hop onto one of those and support the show where you can. So thank you so much, Local Vengeance.
Absolutely. Thanks for taking the time to write in, and welcome. Glad to have you along with us. It's always great to hear from people that are new to the game. There's sort of a myth about, WoW doesn't ever attract any new players. And granted, I'm sure brand new players are a small chunk of the overall base, but they do exist. People, find the game for the first time all the time, even as established as it is. So really cool to hear from brand new players. And yeah, WoW's been live for 20 plus years, and it's dense, and there's a lot to know about it. And there's sort of a language through which we discuss it, which might be a bit inscrutable when you're new to it. But I like that attitude of I'll eventually get there. And that's sort of, I think that's the best approach to take getting into WoW as a hobby. And for me, even 20 years in, it's having the ability and the interest to learn about the game. When a new thing comes in, okay, how do I approach it? How does it affect how I play? Oh, is there something about my play style that actually isn't as good as it could be? Or do I need to open up my mind to a different play style, or a talent build that I, don't like, but it's better in a certain situation or whatever? That interest and willingness to learn, that's a huge part of enjoying this game. I think it is complex, but the complexity is part of what makes it fun. So it's really cool to hear from a new player who's interested in kind of developing that knowledge base about the game. So yeah, and like Spencer said, if anything we talk about on the show is well, I kind of don't understand what that means, or I don't have context for that, the Discord is there. We hang out there frequently, and we have a really awesome community of people that hang out there and share their experiences, are always willing to help with a particular question, or maybe they find something that is not widely publicized that is helpful to the group. So definitely check that out too. It's a great resource, especially if you have questions or pain points or something on as you begin navigating the game.
Yeah, it's certainly a great way to sort of catch up to date. Even if you're just getting responses from our other listeners, there's a lot of knowledge that we've sort of pooled together in our community, and you can certainly lean on them to be able to get a lot of information. And if you happen to be a postal worker, we have our own community of postal workers who listen to our show on a regular basis. So you'll certainly find some common friends in there doing that. We have a lot of people who commute regularly, a lot of people who work in shipping who do stuff. So it's exciting to sort of be a part of the show, and you can find your own little group within that. So certainly check that out. They considered making a raid team at one point, I remember. All right, that's going to wrap up episode 666 of The Starting Zone. If you want to check out show notes for this episode or leave us a comment on the show, head on over to thestartingzone.com, the official website for the Starting Zone podcast. And if you want to get yourself some hands on some TSE gear, you can find that over at TeePublic. Man, it is over at TeePublic, so teepublic.com/The Starting Zone. You can /stores/The Starting Zone. You can find that, shirts, mugs, stickers. And Jason, where can folks find you on the internet?
Best place to find me is over on Twitter. You can find me over there at Shieldwald, or you can also find me on Blue Sky over at jlucas.bsky.social. Usually posting more over on Blue Sky, although I do check both sides, so come say hi wherever you're at. Video channels are at twitch.tv/Shieldwald and youtube.com/Shieldwald. Pretty quiet lately. I haven't been streaming or anything much lately, but we'll get back into it probably once patch and season 2 start ramping up a bit more. I don't think I'm going to be streaming any Plunder Storm for the upcoming drops event, because I get too frustrated, and I'm not sure that footage of me hiding in a bush is too riveting stream content anyway. So, but check them out. We'll be back for season 2.
Yes, there will certainly be some streaming content happening over the next little bit. So check that out. You can find me over at the starting. Sorry, you can find me there is the startingzone.com, the website that you can find all that information over there on. Trying to find me though, you find me on Twitter at Spencer_Downey, over on Blue Sky at SpencerHD.BlueSkySocial, or you can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/SpencerHD, or I have a YouTube channel, youtube.com/@SpencerHD. You can throw a subscribe or a follow or whatever it is over there if you're trying to find more stuff about me. And with that, for Jason and myself, we want to say thanks for listening, and jobs done.